Okay, a couple of things before we get into today's content. We have less than 2 weeks before the AP exam. It's on the 21st, so that's not this coming Thursday, but the Thursday after that. So hopefully clear your schedules around 1 p.m. because that's when it is. I also have your AP IDs. So if you need your AP ID, obviously I'm not going to just like say it out loud, but text me through Remind and I will text you back with your AP ID. They should have sent it to you in an email, but just in case it got lost in your trash or you're getting 1,000 emails and you don't know where it went, you can send me a text and I have your AP ID. I think everything is all caps, so I'll send it to you the way that it looks, but in case, because you have to do something. Gianna said something last week, but you have to do something like 2 days before the test or something. I don't remember exactly what she said. I'll have to go back and maybe text her, see what she remembers what it was.
They send us like an e-ticket and we have to like make sure we have it, I think.
Okay. And the e-ticket you like has your ID on it, or you have to put in your ID?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Hopefully it'll be more clear. Okay. Another thing, I don't know how many of you guys are fall semester kids. I don't think any of you. I'm trying to think. No.
Jacob.
Jacob's a fall semester kid? No.
Yeah, he is.
Really? Oh yeah. Okay. Well, all the assignments, it's confusing. All the assignments, completion assignments that I have been giving my spring semester kids as their like grade for the week, I posted on the review website, so you can go back and look at that. We're actually going to go over the FRQ that I assigned this week. Technically, it's not due till midnight tonight, but the people that haven't done it yet are not the people that are watching this. So, and if you haven't done it, then we'll do it together. But it's completion, so it doesn't matter. In terms of like, people are just like typing in random things, and I technically have to give them 100 for it. So that's fun. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you. If you have access to the completion grade FRQ practice from this week, you can pull it up if you want to kind of follow along with me. Otherwise, you'll see it on your screen here momentarily. Good morning, Summer. Share my entire screen, yes. Summer, before you join, I was just saying that I have your AP IDs. So if you need your AP College Board ID, you can send me a text and I can message it back to you. Okay, so here is the assignment that I posted this week for the completion assignment. It was 2 FRQs. Honestly, when I looked at the first one, I was like, oh, this isn't too bad. And then as I started doing it this morning, I realized like, oh my gosh, this is so simple. It's almost painful. Keep in mind that for every question that has math, you're going to have to type out your work. You're going to have to show your work with like this plus this equals that. So on the question 1, it gives you a chart with consumption spending, investment spending, government spending, and transfer payments. And then on the directions say like the table below shows the spending on final goods in billions of dollars by consumers, businesses, and government in an equilibrium in a country with no international trade. So that's why there's no. Hold on one second. Hey, Matthew. What? Can you close your door? Okay. Thank you. It says that the MPS is equal to 0.4 and there's no exports or imports. So that's why it's not on the table. It would be 0, I guess. And then on A, it says calculate the real GDP in this country. So you're like, oh, I thought by adding up numbers, wouldn't that just be the nominal GDP? But if you look at the table, it says this is the value in the base year. And the base year is what you convert nominal GDP into to get it into real. So these are in real values already. So when I first looked at this, I'm like, usually they say calculate nominal first. But here they're saying calculate real because it's already in terms of the base year, which means these numbers are already in real GDP. And so you're just adding C plus I plus G. You are not including transfer payments. Transfer payments are like Social Security or unemployment, and those don't count towards GDP. So it's just 900 plus 400 plus 200 for a total of, and that's in billions of dollars, so it's $1,500 billion is A. B, it says calculate the MPC, show your work. And I was like, okay. So it gives you NPS, and you know that NPS plus MPC equals the number 1. So my showing of work is 1 minus MPC, or sorry, 1 minus MPS equals MPC. So 1 minus 0.4, which is what they give you as MPS, is equal to 0.6. So MPC is 0.6. All right. On C, it says, suppose the government increases spending from 200 billion to 300 billion. Calculate the maximum change in real GDP. So this is the, let me get my whiteboard. This is the whole change, total change or change in spending times the spending multiplier times KS. It's going to give you the change in GDP. Make sure that you know that it's change in spending. So this is going to be, the change in spending is $100 billion because it went from 200 to 300. So $100 billion is the change in spending. The KS is the spending multiplier, which is 1 over MPS. MPS is given to you, which is 0.4. So it's 1 over 0.4. So you can move decimal places over, or you have access to use a calculator now. And 1 over 0.4 is 2.5. So 100 billion times the multiplier of 2.5 is going to give you $250 billion. So that is the max change in real GDP that we can have with a change of spending of 100 billion. And then on double I, it says, given your change in real GDP, calculate the maximum level of new equilibrium real GDP and show your work. This is really wordy, but basically in the previous part of the question, you figured out that real GDP was 1,500 billion because that was that 900 plus 400 plus 200. So the real GDP is 1,500 billion, but then they changed spending and it's going to change GDP by 250 billion. So you're just adding the numbers together. You're like, we were at 1,500 billion, but now we have a max change of 250 billion. So you're just adding those two numbers together for 1,750, like $1,750 billion. Or I guess you could say what, $1,750,000,000, something like that. And then on D, this is a question that I've seen many, many times on many FRQs. It says, suppose that taxes decrease by $100 billion. Will the maximum change in real GDP be larger than, smaller than, or equal to the change in GDP that you identified in part CI? Well, part CI was about a spending change of $100 billion. And now it says, well, what if they did taxes change by $100 billion? Will it have the same effect? No, the taxes change will have a smaller effect than the change that you identified in part CI, because the spending multiplier always has a bigger impact on GDP than the tax multiplier does. So the taxes will have a smaller effect than that spending change did earlier. Okay, so how was that first FRQ? It shouldn't have been too bad. If anything, people typically get tricked up on the smaller than, greater than, equal to things with the tax multiplier. Just know that spending has a bigger impact. So if you want the same impact with taxes, you're going to have to change taxes, increase or decrease, depending on what you're doing. You're going to have to change taxes by a much bigger amount than the spending change, because the tax multiplier, it's going to multiply it by one more amount, one more change of spending. Does that make sense? Because the spending multiplier is one more and positive than the tax multiplier will be. Okay. Any questions about that first FRQ practice? We good? We good? Thumbs ups all around? Okay, thumbs up. All right, let's look at the second one. The second one says, include correctly labeled, okay. It says use graphs, but I don't think you have to graph anything here. Okay. But it also says if you calculate, you must show how you arrived at the final answer, meaning you must show your work. So it has a chart with consumption, employee compensation, government spending, interest payments, investment spending, net exports, profits, rents, and savings. And it's asking you to first calculate. It tells you the GDP deflator is 160. I was just giving you extra information. It says calculate nominal GDP. So you are not using all of these figures. You can go the income approach and do like RWIP, which is rent plus interest plus profits plus, what am I missing? Rent plus wages plus interest payments plus profit. There we go. Or you can just do C plus I plus G plus XN, but you're not doing both of those things because that would be counting everything twice. So I would just do the C plus I plus G plus XN, which if you, hold on, I did all my work earlier. I want to make sure that I'm referring to it. Otherwise it'd be pointless to do it. You're doing 1,000, which is C, consumption. So 1,000 plus 400, which is government spending, plus 300, which is investment spending. And then you are adding the negative 100 for net exports. So that should give you 1,600. And that's in millions of dollars. So that's 1,600 million. The next question says, explain why the income approach for calculating GDP yields the same values as the expenditure approach. Basically, if you did C plus I plus G plus XN, you're going to get 1,600. And if you did RWIP, you're going to get 1,600. And it's asking why. And it's because of the circular flow model. The money that we spend is equal to the money that we make according to the circular flow model. It's as simple as that. And then C, it says explain one difference between the CPI and GDP deflator. And I think we talked about that earlier this week because I brought it up in a review session, like in a tutoring session, but then maybe didn't really go over it in class. The GDP deflator measures all goods and services, while the CPI only measures a basket of goods and services. Also, I didn't know this, but I looked it up. CPI includes imports, like it's including some goods that are imported, even though that should be taken out of our GDP. And so in the GDP deflator, imports numbers are removed because of net exports, and we subtract imports from our exports. But the CPI includes the price of imports, which is kind of weird. Okay. And CSD, using the GDP deflator, which they give you, it's 160, calculate real GDP for 2018. So the GDP that we figured out on A was 1,600. And remember, the equation is nominal over we're using what? GDP deflator? Yeah. Over the GDP deflator. If they had given you CPI, you would have used that as well. Times 100. Our nominal was 1,600. Our GDP deflator was 160. This is pretty simple math. 1,600 divided by 160 times 100. It's going to give you 1,000 because that's 100 times 100. So it's 1,000, and it's 1,000 million. So $1 billion. And last but not least, it's kind of wordy. It says, assume that wheat farmers in country X sold their entire crop of wheat to domestic wheat millers who sold it to domestic bakeries. If the value of the wheat farmer's sales is 10 million, and the value of the wheat miller's sales is 25 million, and the value of the bakery sales is 65 million, how much would country's nominal GDP change as a result of this transaction? Well, remember, we do not count inputs towards GDP, only final goods and services when it actually reaches the customer. And it only reaches the customer at that last stop, which is the bakery sales. So only $65 million goes into GDP. The other two numbers would, if we counted those, it would be double counting. We only count final goods and services because the prices, that 10 million and that 25 million is already included. It's already accounted for when it gets to the 65 million. So we only count 65 million because that's final goods and services. Okay. We didn't have to add anything. It's just knowing that we count final goods and services. Okay. Questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, or concerns about that FRQ? Are we good? Are we thumbs upping? Okay. I have another FRQ that I wanted to show you guys. I did not assign it this week, but it has popped up from year to year. And I gave this actually would have been on your final exam because it was on last semester's final exam. The fall kids, they got something very similar to this. And I thought it was simple. I was trying to give them something to help their grade, and turns out no one remembered how to do it because it was something so easy that we did it like one time in class. And then I was like, oh, it's so easy. They got this. And then we didn't refresh. It popped up. Hello. How's your marble run? Are you spinning your marble all around, making it go in loop-de-loops?
Good guess. Loops and loops.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll see you in a little bit, okay? All right. So here was the a similar FRQ. It's not the exact same one, I don't think, that I gave them, but it's very, very similar. Basically, it's a table like this where there's products and there's the prices of those products from year to year and the quantities of those products sold. And they typically ask you to do several things. They typically ask you to solve for a nominal GDP in one of those years and like a real GDP. Well, the nominal GDP just means like how much money did they make? So I think here it says, what's the nominal GDP for 2010? So here's the 2010 quantities of food, clothes, and entertainment, and the 2010 prices. So it's just figuring out how much money they made in 2010. They sold 8 foods at $2.50. They sold 10 clothes at $10 and 5 entertainments at $5. So you're just multiplying to figure out how much money they made, and then adding all of those, all those numbers together. That's it. People were like, I thought, because they were looking, because we had done so many questions about like CPI and like the GDP deflator and nominal divided by, and to solve for real. And they're all like, I can't solve for real or nominal without a CPI. It's like, no, you can totally do it. Just figure out like nominal GDP is just how much money was made. So they were so busy with that one equation that they didn't realize that you could solve it in different ways. And so I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it's 8 times 250 plus 10 times 10 plus 5 times 5. And then for real GDP, once again, they were like, we don't have a CPI. Well, if you convert it, you can use a base year, and that acts as a CPI. So basically, for just nominal, it's like how much money did you make that year? But for real, then you take the base year prices, assuming that prices stayed the same, assuming prices were constant, you take the prices of whatever they say is the base year and then multiply it for the quantities of the year they're talking about. So the year they're talking about is 2010. So we take 2010 quantities and multiply that by base year prices. And that's going to be the real GDP for 2010, because we're assuming prices are constant from 2009. And then it's kind of hard to see, but can I scroll this way? No, there we go. Another question that pops up is inflation percent. And it basically says if one year the price index is 50, that's price index, that's CPI. So if one year the CPI is 50, the next year's CPI is 55, what's the rate of inflation? It's just the percent change formula. New minus old over old times 100. So the new CPI is 55 minus 50 over 50 times 100. So it's just a percent change formula. And here's another question that talks about the Fisher equation, which people tend to forget about because it's so simple, and then they forget about it. So it says, assume that next year's wage rate will be 3% higher than this year. Okay, so we get a 3% wage raise. Yeah, wage raise. There we go. Say that 5 times fast. But actual inflation is 4%. At the beginning of the year, will your real wage be higher or lower or the same as today? So if your wage goes up by 3%, but then prices go up by 4%, remember, inflation is a monster. Inflation eats away. And so if inflation is going to eat away 4% from your 3, which means inflation is going to eat more than your wage change. So your real wage is actually lower because inflation was higher. And then it says, assume that Sarah gets a fixed rate loan from the bank with the expected inflation of 3%. The actual inflation turns out to be 4%. Who benefits from the unexpected inflation? It says what? Sarah, the bank, neither or both. It's never going to be neither. It's never going to be both. When there's either unexpected inflation or deflation, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. So the bank, you could put numbers in, but just keep in mind some people like to see the Fisher equation in math and written out. But that basically just says there's unexpected inflation. It was higher than what the bank had predicted, and she is paying off a loan. Okay, so does anyone know the answer of what happens? Like, she is either having to pay or getting paid, and the money has lower purchasing value with unexpected inflation. So think about who she has to, or what she has to do. Is she getting paid, or is she having to pay? So Kaylee, she's took out a loan. So now is she getting paid this money that's worth nothing, or is she having to pay money that's worth nothing?
She's paying money that's worth nothing. So
And
she doesn't really care to give it back now.
Right. And so the bank is worse off, but she is better off because when there's unexpected inflation, purchasing power has gone down. And so its money is worth less. So you just have to think about, am I having to pay, which is fantastic if it's worth less, or am I getting paid, which is stinky because it's worth less. So you're right. Kaylee, good job. Sticker for you.
Yeah.
Just think about who is getting money or who has to pay money. Like, where's the money going? Is it being paid to you, or are you having to pay it? That's how you answer all those inflation questions. And then, if the money is worth more or less. Okay, that was that FRQ that I wanted to show you. Are there any questions? I'm not going to go over the quiz questions that are due tonight until next Wednesday, our next office hours. I just wanted to go over the completion grade with you now. Are there any questions that you guys want to talk about? Anything that you guys want to go over about the FRQs that I showed you, about whatever? Kaylee?
So what if the interest rate on a loan is higher than the inflation rate?
The interest, okay, so like the bank expected it to be 3%, but it was only 2%.
Yeah.
You have to pay the 3% anyway. It's a fixed rate. And so the bank is actually benefiting from this. Okay, so let me show you with math. This is when math actually helps. The bank charges 10% because they expect inflation to eat away. Here, let me stop presenting. Hold on, you are presenting. I want to stop presenting. Right, okay. Okay, so the bank charges, let's say 10%, because they expect inflation to eat away 3%. So they know at the end of the day, they're gonna get 7% interest. But let's say what actually happens is that inflation is only 1%. Which is lower than what they expected. Well, they still charged 10% for the loan, but now they get to keep 9% as opposed to only 7%. So you still have to pay the 10%. But because what inflation was lower than what they expected, they actually get a larger return, real return.
Oh, okay.
So they're benefited, and if they're benefiting, you're in the hurt.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? That was a good question. Any other questions about Fisher equation, real and nominal, GDP versus, I don't know, GNP, what's included, not included, In a recession, isn't it better to save than spend? Well, are we talking about for the one or for many? Because if it's for the many, spending is how you get out of it, out of the recession. But if you're the only one spending and everyone else is saving, that's not enough to get out of a recession. And then you spent all your money and now you like I am not going to go out right now and be buying a whole bunch of things. I don't know if you followed me on Twitter or anything, but I tweeted this morning. Where'd it go? I posted something. The unemployment numbers were released. And it says the real rate of unemployment right now is 24.9%, which is the same as the Great Depression. Yeah. So that was just released this morning. So so very exciting stuff, and they say it's going to get worse. So we're looking, and that's just this month numbers. And they said that 33.5 million jobs have been lost last month. So I'm not going out and spending anything, but I don't know. But I'm also not like pulling my money out of the stock market, anyways, because it's cyclical. It'll dip. But that's like your favorite brands are on sale. Amazon, Google, it's on sale. That's when you start buying if you can. If you have no money, you don't have a job, and you're like, I feed my kids or I save for the future. You feed your kids. So there's that. Okay. Questions, comments? Good? Michelle, how you doing? Oh, Michelle's frozen. Summer, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Jay, how you doing?
Stressed yet blessed.
Oh, see, very nice, very nice. Kaylee, you good? Jacob, you good? Live, laugh, love. Oh my gosh. You're like a white woman's bathroom. And Zach, you good? Your picture went away.
I was just curious if you were going to post anything on AP Classroom for review for the AP test.
I can. Do you just want me to that's where I've been getting my completion grades. I've just been copying and pasting questions from there. So technically you have been doing things on AP Classroom, but I can just like post an assignment. Would you rather have me post FRQs or multiple choice?
FRQs for practice for the AP test.
Okay, I will just go and post. Do you want like a ridiculous amount, or do you want just like one or two?
Just something to practice, so either or.
Okay, I'll post like 20. And you do it or you don't do it. Like, it's not part of your grade. You can do as many or as little as you want. I think it should give you the answers, because there's like rubrics posted. So you might have to grade yourself. It's not going to be like 4, but you can go and grade yourself.
Okay.
Matthew, do you have any advice to give these kids? Any words of encouragement? Any things that you want them to know?
No clue.
No clue? Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. I will see you guys later. Have a great weekend. Give your mother some love this weekend, because it is Mother's Day on Sunday. And I will see you guys on Wednesday.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs. And you guys got to sign off before I do. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.
You watch Star Wars movies on May the 4th.
We actually didn't watch any Star Wars movies on May the 4th, but we just went through a long marathon. So we had watched all of them in order. So we were kind of Star Wars out. Zach, are you just joining us?
We're leaving.
Yes. Oh,
Zach,
wow.
we're leaving.
Yeah, it's over. Zach, do you have any questions?
Sorry.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, I recorded this, so it has to process, and that takes a long time to process. But like in like an hour, it'll be up, and you can go and watch it. And then if you have any questions, you can like shoot me an email or a text or something.
It's okay,
Okay,
Zach.
perfect.
It's
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Log
Bye,
off. I'll see you guys
Taylor.
later.
Rip. Okay, well, I guess this is bye.
Bye, Zach.
Oh, gee.
That's hilarious. And stop recording.